Well, we have talked about this quite recently, and I would very recommend the podcast we did with Mark Steele for Cancer Research UK, which went out I think on all our feeds, but it went out on this feed as well. Which was all three of us talking about. I mean, I got off very very lightly with my cancer, but all three of us. I don't really like to talk about it. I'll do it for. And I can't imagine someone making a 5-year doing books and stand-up shows. I'm just hoping I get seriously ill with something else because I think I've really squeezed that one dry. But there's a brilliant. So we'll talk about this a little bit. But there's the podcast we did with Mark. I think was like one of the funniest, and it was emotional. To be honest, I got to the point where I was just sitting back and laughing and enjoying and being amazed and confounded by your guys' stories because my cancer involved like one little operation, and both for you and Mark, it was very serious cancers, right?
Oh yeah. But it was good fun talking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had...
well,
Do listen to it.
Yeah, but it's really worth it. It's so funny, and you're both so funny about it, and what you've both been through. And I think yours is... What you've been through is a big journey.
I find it so funny that people say journey.
Yeah.
People say, how's your cancer journey? I was like, I'm not going to rebook it. It's not like... I don't recommend the route. Mine was really quick, really.
Right.
I was diagnosed, and 6 weeks later, I was, chopped open. I had really bad nerve pain. It was I was doing the Edinburgh Festival in the summer of 23, and I just had really bad nerve pain at my left buttock. And it was getting to the point where, like, if anyone's ever had nerve pain in their back, any millimetre you move you can't. So it's driving me mad. So they gave me diazepam and other stuff to just help me get through the festival. And I saw it, and I'd forgotten some of these details actually because I met up with him recently. The guy who diagnosed me, but he said just get an MRI. That was crucial. And he said you probably just slipped a disc. I go and see him 2 days after the Edinburgh Festival, and he couldn't bring himself to say the word cancer. And the problem is, he was a really funny guy, and it was like a sort of British Asian doctor, Scottish Asian. And this was I was going across to Glasgow to see him, and so I saw him a couple of times during the festival, and I was at the time very scared of needles. Right. And he'd say, "Oh, I think we're going to have to take blood." I go, "Oh no, man, no, I can't." And he'd go, "Oh my God. How did you people colonise half the globe?" Oh, nurse, we've got another pale Englishman in here. It was top banter, right? Yeah. So we go back, and my wife comes to me. I was like, "You're going to love this guy because he's a fucking character. He's going to give me shit for being English and all this." I was like, strapping, because around. And he comes out with like this ashen face. And he goes, "Do you want to come to the consultation room?" I was like, "Mate, I told you you're really funny." And, he's not putting on a show. I was like, fine. And he's going, "There's something unusual on your spine. There's a lesion." I was like, "Okay." It will require probably intervention. I was like, "Okay." It wasn't. My wife just went, "Is it cancer?" He went, "Yeah." I was like, "Oh God." And then you realise, if it's on your spine, like very quickly you realise, oh, that's not like it's just in my arm where it could be. It's not in soft tissue. This can be quite big. And then he took me over he set up a meeting with a surgeon, and he just said, if you have surgery, you lose everything from the waist down, which I thought made me paralysed. It sort of made sense.
Yeah.
Later turned out it just means bladder, bowel, sexual function, which obviously is a big thing. Yeah. So anyway. 6 weeks later, I'm at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital in London, and they carved me open. I've had the base of my spine removed, and so I've now got a stoma and a colostomy bag after self-catheterised in order to pee, which it all sounds horrific. It's really easy. Now that I don't poo the old way, I've got a lot more spare time. Although I am reading less, so there's swings and roundabouts. But I recently, I'm incontinent, right? So most of the poo goes into the stoma, but I still wear. And they call them, they say, "Oh, these special pants." You're like, they're nappies. The special, they're tenor pants. Oh, they're fucking nappies for men. Part of the problem was, because they cut the nerves to get the sacrum out, which is like the bone that the tumour was on, as well as, I can't tell when my bladder's full because there's no sensation. So 6-7 times a day, I've just got disposable catheters that I ram down there. And it doesn't hurt, so it's fine. But in between, you know, if I laugh or sneeze or whatever, I was leaking. And if I go to the pub, I'd take a rucksack with me of like wipes and I'm not bragging. I possess the ability to drink a lot of alcohol. I can drink like 10 or 12 pints. I mean, it was costing me a fortune in nappies. Because I was taking a rucksack of nappies to the pub, pissing 12 pints out, to go to the toilet and change all the time. And then, I had an operation in October last year.
Right.
So to stop me leaking, I've been fitted with an artificial urinary sphincter. And this is an inflatable thing that's now inside me that goes around the pee pipe and just fills with fluid itself and tightens it. So it just stops it. So whenever I sneeze, laugh, whatever, no pee comes out. But in order to get the catheter down there, I need to be to open that valve. And I've now got a button in my balls, in the ball bag, that every time I need to pee, which is like 7 or 8 times a day, I just press this button 4 times, and it opens the valve, and I can then get a catheter down there. Nice. But it's under the flesh. It's just off the driver's side of the right bollock. And it's just fucking miraculous. And that basically moves the liquid to like a little reservoir that's behind my abdominal wall. Yeah. And it's just this little... Amazing, isn't it? Isn't that phenomenal? That the NHS has like invented that.
Yeah. I've lost a testicle, so I don't know what you're talking about. I'm making a big deal about...
You could do with one to level the old sack out.
Yeah, I could get one of those put in. There's some room for that now.
Yeah.
But you've a lot of people would, I don't know, would they have what I love about you and Mark, because it's what I felt as well, is you come out of it and it's a positive experience, right? There's a lot of positivity comes out of it because you're still alive and because you sort of appreciate being alive. And when something like this happens to you, you've just got to get on with it. And what you've been through is, it's a lot. It's a lot to cope with that change. And you're a relatively young man.
Yeah, I was 40 when I was diagnosed, yeah. And obviously at the time, you just don't think it's going to be cancer. And I didn't feel ill apart from the nerve pain. So it was a shock. My main thing was, I was just like, am I going to live? And they said I would. So that was the main thing. And then I was in a hospital for a long time, and pain was the real problem that I faced. And a really bad nerve pain. I still have a sort of lingering level that I can absolutely live with. But it was pain that was at a level that I'm amazed I didn't black out for 3 weeks solid of just permanent pain. It was obviously a very distressing experience, and I sort of cried more than I've ever cried in my life. And I cry every time England win and every time England lose. So I cry a lot. But it was the thing that I kept thinking was even on days that were terrible, there were still good things happening, and I had lots of friends. I was at a great hospital. The NHS saved my life, and there were people from all over the world that played their part in my surgery, in my recovery, and everything. The hospital was a miraculous place that I loved, and I loved it in every way. I loved the food, I loved the staff. I'm still friends with the nurses and surgeons that looked after me. We go out for dinner and drinks and stuff, and they've become some of my best friends. So there was like really good stuff happening. My wife was amazing. Was there all day, every day. Learned to nurse me and change my colostomy bag because I was in a bed for 10 weeks and couldn't move, and I was having to be turned every 4 hours because my wounds were so big on my front and my back. So obviously that was distressing, but I thought... I've always been an optimist.
Yes.
And I always thought life was amazing. And I wondered, if you go through something that really tests that, I just kept thinking, I don't want to become a sad bastard. I don't want to be sad about life.
Yeah.
I don't want to have a shit life, and I don't want to be sad about it. Kept thinking that. And I didn't know what, I didn't know if I was going to be paralyzed. I just didn't know what my future was going to be like. Was still going to do stuff or whatever, I don't know. So then when you come out and you've still got a really good life, how can you not feel amazing about that? How can you not feel, 1, I lived, 2, hopefully my life hasn't been shortened, and 3, I can walk, having a colostomy bag and all that, it's not really that big a change. It's just such a small change compared to what some people have when they go through cancer. They get brain tumours, they haven't got long left. All sorts of people have to endure in life. And I'm not in Gaza or Ukraine, so you just think, well, you start to count your blessings. And I just think about life. What was really, the thing that I really take from it is they didn't know what sort of cancer it was at the start. And it was sort of clear that depending on what sort of cancer it was, we're going to have slightly different outcomes. And I just thought, I need to brace myself whatever he says next. And I just thought, I sort of had to face my own mortality, really. And I thought, if he says I've got 10 years left, I need to be okay with it. And then I could see my life almost like an old airport departure board. I could just see the time I had left fluttering away outside of my control. I just thought, if she said, fine, I was just bargaining it down. And I got myself down to about a fortnight. I was basically fine with it. Now, had I been given a fortnight, I probably wouldn't have been fine. But I was just thinking, and I got to a point where I just thought, you know what, if I live longer, the only thing I thought was I'd really miss my wife, and that was like a big, we'd not long got married. But apart from that, I thought, well, I'd just be doing more of the same anyway. and I can't figure out if that's the most profound thing I've ever thought, whether I'm thick as shit and what life is wasted on me. I'd be doing more of that. But I just thought, and in a way that I never felt like I was carrying any pressure about my demise before. But it kind of took a pressure off me. I mean, the first year after it, I just was so zen. And I was on walking sticks, was learning to walk again. I live in London, and sometimes I'd like cross a zebra crossing, and people would beep their horns to make me go faster. And it didn't bother me. I was just like, man, whatever's going on in that car is outside of my control. It made me absolutely sort of an inner peace I'd never experienced. Now, I'm sort of 2 years, you know, the old me's come, you know, if I hear a car on anywhere near me, I think, crash and die, you cunt, you know. But with a sort of inner peace underneath it. So it definitely gave me an inner peace for a while that I think I've tried to keep hold of. But I just think, man, if you go through, hopefully the worst experience I ever go through, how can you not feel amazing when you sort of recover on the other side of it?